Let's go through a couple of examples of how we use Avogadro's number when doing a conversion using unit analysis. And as I go, I'm going to mention a few of the guidelines to doing these questions correctly that will come in helpful. So the first question we have is how many atoms of zinc are in 3.25 moles of zinc? So you need to identify what am I trying to find? That would be the atoms of zinc. And then you want to start your calculation with a number that has the simplest units possible. Well, in that case, that's pretty straightforward because we only have one number. Remember, another adage is, when in doubt, change to moles. In this question, we actually already have moles. So clearly we're going to start our unit analysis with the number 3.25 moles of zinc. It's really important that anytime you write down a number, you include your units so that you can use it as part of your unit analysis. So how are we going to do this conversion? Well, we want to set up a conversion fraction. And part of our conversion fraction, to ensure it's correct, is to make sure that whatever units I start with are on the denominator of our unit conversion. And then on the top, when possible, you put the units of what you're trying to convert to. So in this case, we're converting from moles to atoms. Strongly recommend use these horizontal conversion fractions. You don't want to use slash type fractions. They may seem like a shortcut, they may seem to let you save space, but they make it much more difficult to keep track of your work once you move on to more difficult conversions. So, as you can see, I started by writing down my units and getting them correct. Once you have your units in the correct places, then you can add the numbers that go with those units. So in this case, we're using Avogadro's number. There are 6.02 times 10 to the 23 atoms of zinc for every 1 mole of zinc. Once everything's set up, then you can go to using your calculator. Before you do that, make sure you indicate in some way that your units cancel correctly. So you can see in this case, I start with moles. I have moles in the denominator here. So those units cancel out, leaving me the units of atoms of zinc, which is what I am trying to find. So how do you enter this into your calculator? Well, you're going to put in the 3.25 that you started with. Because the Avogadro's number is on the top of your conversion fraction, you're going to multiply. And the way you put anything in scientific notation in a calculator is to use your EXP button. Remember, on some calculators, that will be an EE button. Enter the 23 for the power, hit enter. You will get an answer of 1.96 times 10 to the 24. Now I've rounded this off to the correct number of significant figures. We have 3 digits here, 3 digits here, so I make sure I have 3. It's important to have the correct number of significant figures. In later calculations, when we have multiple conversion factors, you may be tempted to round off partway through. Definitely not a good idea. If you do need to write down numbers partway through a calculation, keep some extra decimal places to ensure that you have accuracy at the end. Only round off when you reach the end of your calculation. I do want to include my units. Whichever unit you're left with at the top is going to be the correct unit. Make sure it matches what the question's asking you to find. There's your answer to that question. Let's look at one more. We'll do go in reverse. In this case, we're asked how many moles of krypton are in 4.58 times 10 to the power of 25 atoms of krypton. Once again, identify what you know. We know 4.58 times 10 to the 25 atoms. That's the only number we know, so it's also the simplest number. And identify where you're trying to go. We're trying to get to moles. So let's start out with our unit analysis. 4.58 times 10 to the 25 atoms of krypton. We're going to set up a conversion fraction, make sure the units cancel correctly, add your numbers, Avogadro's. There are 6.02 times 10 to the 23 atoms of krypton for every 1 mole of krypton. Make sure things cancel correctly, indicate that with a little slash is a good idea. How do you put this in your calculator? Similar as to before, now we have 2 scientific notation numbers. So we're going to go 4.58 exponent 25. In this case, the number we're worried about is on the bottom. So instead of multiplying, we're going to divide by 6.02 exponent 23. Hit the enter key. There's your answer. There are 76.1 moles of krypton. Again, make sure you include units in your answer. I'll point out one other thing, if you've been paying attention, you might notice that nowhere in my calculators did I ever enter the ones. That's because multiplying by 1 does not change a number, and dividing by 1 does not change a number. So anytime you have ones as part of your conversions, you can ignore them when you go to enter it in your calculator.